In the aftermath of Russian President Vladimir Putin's recognition of the independence of the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics in eastern Ukraine, completely in violation of international law, many people fear that the world is now on the cusp of a major war between Russia and Ukraine. Those fears are very valid, and that could be the case literally within hours. Predictably, the West is now leading to its favorite policy option of choice in almost any condition, and that is with sanctions. Many European capitals, and certainly Washington is no exception, are preparing what they consider to be, or what they are calling, very serious sanctions in response.
This is the beginning of a Russian invasion of Ukraine, as he indicated and asked permission to be able to do from his Duma. So let's begin to, I'm going to begin to impose sanctions in response far beyond the steps we and our allies and partners implemented in 2014.
Now, most Western analysts are correctly pointing out that the West is not going to throw out the kitchen sink of sanctions at this point and give the maximum sanctions, because then that would leave them nowhere to go and would make Vladimir Putin say, okay, well, if that's all you got, if that's what's going to be, then there's nothing else you can do to stop me, because you're already saying you're not going to use military power. So now that he has no motivation to do anything except exactly what he wants to do. Now, that presupposes that there are actually some group of sanctions that could actually suppress Putin's appetite on this, that could actually stop him from continuing to move towards war. That is a mistake. Look, it is time for the West to just, I mean, we're way beyond time, but the West has to stop now and finally recognize that our policies for years, if not decades, has been an abject failure. And now that if we continue to try to stick to that same policy path that we've been on, the one that has failed so many times, then we're going to be embarrassed again to discover, or upset, that it fails again. Because look, let's just be point blank. Sanctions are not going to deter Vladimir Putin. They haven't up to this point, and they're not going to now. They have been signaling that. They have been preparing for it. Putin has been working deals with China. He's been working deals with Belarus and actually a number of other states as well. So he has a plan in place. He has billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign reserves, so he can weather a lot of storms. And he calculated long before he took one step that he can handle any sanctions. Sanctions aren't going to stop him. If the West truly wants to stop this attack into Ukraine and an outright war in Ukraine, and it is in the 11th hour and 59th minute now, it is still at least possible, but it won't be because of any sanctions. It's going to be because we do now, at the last minute, what we should have done years ago, and that is to accept ground truth reality. The only thing that's going to deter Putin is to have his number one overriding primary policy objective be realized, and that is no eastward expansion of NATO into Ukraine. Now, he's been saying this well over a decade, all the way back to 2007 at the Munich Security Conference, in 2008 when he had a limited incursion into Georgia, in 2014 when he annexed the Crimea away from Ukraine. In every case, he's saying, do not advance NATO eastward towards Russia, not towards our border. But instead of just listening to reality, the reality that we don't even want Ukraine into NATO because they'll never qualify. Under any circumstances, they do not qualify for NATO expansion, and they definitely won't improve the security of the other 30 members of NATO. Now, if we can't do that, if we can't improve the alliance with bringing any other country in there, then we should just acknowledge that and just say, hey, we're not even going to do it. We're going to take that off the table. It could have been done much more effective and easier in the past. Now it's going to be much more difficult because any Western leader at this point who succumbs to reality and does what's necessary to prevent war is, of course, going to be attacked as being an appeaser and everything else. So it's going to take really strong leadership. But I'm telling you, even in this late hour, that is the one thing that should be done that has a chance to prevent war in Europe. If we fail to take this chance, then the probability is near certainty that we're going to have war, and then the problems are going to cascade significantly from there. And that will be the subject of another deep dive video later on. But just understand that things could get much worse, and the world is in desperate need of some leader to stand up, be willing to take that political heat, but do what's necessary, what can be done, rationally can be done, to prevent war and the deaths of probably tens of thousands of Ukrainian citizens.